In this last video this week, I'm going to talk about giving and receiving coaching, which is such an important aspect of our course. At a minimum, I hope and expect that you will both give written feedback to 3 of your classmates each week and, in return, receive feedback from 3 classmates on each of your assignments. And I encourage you to use other means for coaching exchanges through our discussion forums, our Google Hangouts, meetups, whatever works for you. I'd like you to think of yourself as both a peer coach and a peer client, which is the term I use to describe the person receiving input from a coach. As peer coaches, you provide support and feedback and keep one another accountable. The idea of being a coach may seem daunting. You may feel that you and your classmates don't have the qualifications to be coaches. While you might not be a professional coach, and I expect you're not, you can still offer valuable coaching support. The effectiveness of peer-to-peer coaching depends on the commitment of the players in both the role of coach and client. I hope you'll take this part of your membership in our community seriously. You have an opportunity here to have a positive impact on your classmates. And you have the opportunity to get some valuable feedback yourself. Change is hard. People often cannot see the full picture of what they need to see to create change. And we tend to resist change. Coaching helps. It helps people overcome their resistance, their natural and understandable fear and reluctance to try something new. Now, there are 2 basic kinds of coaching. In directive coaching, which usually requires some expertise, you teach, you advise, you tell your client what to do as you solve the problem as the coach. In non-directive coaching, your main task is to ask questions to help the client solve the problem. In this course, we'll mainly be doing non-directive coaching. When we talk about coaching in the context of a sport, we often think of coaches as people who have specific expertise in the sport and who provide directive coaching. In our course, as a peer coach, I encourage you to take a mainly non-directive approach. You're not someone who needs to know more or be more qualified than your classmates, who are your clients. You just have to care about trying to help them. And I am confident that you can do this. Directive coaching involves listening to your client and then offering instruction based on your own knowledge and expertise. Non-directive coaching, which is, again, what you'll be doing here, involves listening to your client's problems, reading their material, but instead of then offering advice, asking questions that encourage your client to generate solutions and new insights on their own. Asking good questions helps. It helps your client to achieve greater self-understanding. Again, it's best to focus on non-directive coaching in our course, whether in writing, your peer feedback, or in any other exchanges that you have with other students in our course. One important reason is that asking questions, it feels much less judgmental than just telling someone else what to do. And again, in the context of our learning community, where the issues involve all parts of life, it's preferable to steer clear of making judgments about your clients' values and actions and their choices, and instead to try to help them see their own way to creative solutions by actively inquiring about the things that you think they might be missing. So, what are good questions to ask when you're coaching? Generally, these are questions that prompt your client to think more about their answers in the assignments that you'll all be writing. Questions about the assumptions that they're making and what's led them to see things the way that they do. For example, if your client expresses the opinion that his boss would not be open to an experiment in which he works remotely some of the time, you might ask why he feels that way. Are there things the boss said to suggest that, it would not be possible? Or is the client perhaps projecting his own reservations onto his boss? The key here for you is to challenge assumptions in order to help your client identify areas in which change might be possible. Of course, sometimes you will want to offer advice, especially if you've in your own life thought through similar issues yourself or seen others do so to good effect. So a blend of both non-directive and some directive coaching is often the best way to go. But keep in mind that usually the best outcomes in our course are going to result from your clients figuring out new ways to solve their own problems, just as you will. The most important thing is this. You are effective as a coach in influencing someone else's thinking and behavior and performance to the extent that they believe you care about them. If I think that you're just going through the motions or this is just a way for you to elevate your own esteem as my coach, then I'm less likely to be open to your questions and to your comments. But on the other hand, if I believe that you're trying to help me and that you care about me, well, then I'm much more likely to be open to your influence. As a caring person who has a distinct point of view, you have a different lens through which to see what your client faces. And that is valuable. That's important. And if they're open to listening to your questions and thinking about them, it can really stretch their thinking and create new possibilities for successful action. Past students have found that their coaching exchanges in our course have been some of the most valuable aspects of it. And I hope you will too. Remember, your fellow students are sharing personal issues here, and so we all need to be respectful and compassionate. This is a global learning community that you are a part of, and we may each have different values, different cultural norms. This means that we need to be acutely sensitive and careful about not inadvertently hurting other people. We're all here to try to improve and to be part of a supportive learning environment. Another thing to keep in mind is that there are stages that people tend to go through when undertaking some intentional change, as we are here. You have to identify what needs to change. That's where the assignments for this week and next week come in. You have to feel a sense of urgency about it. Know that you're actually going to do this new thing. Think through how you're going to do it. Find ways to muster the will to sustain the effort once you've initiated some new behavior. And over time, to reinforce it. As a coach, your role is to guide your clients, asking targeted questions that allow them to work through the challenges at each stage. Do they understand what needs to change? Is there enough of a sense of urgency? Do they really care about what they're trying to change? Is this something that is meaningful to them? As a coach, you enhance your impact to the extent that you ask questions in a way that compels your clients to say why it matters, why there's a sense of urgency about trying something new. Because change is less likely to happen otherwise. Have they thought through the decision to actually do something? And is it clear what they're going to do and how they're going to do it? Those are the questions that you'll be asking a little later on. At the point where you're designing experiments, in a few weeks, you might want to ask your clients to explain to you how each experiment is intended to have benefits in all the different parts, all 4 domains. You can assist further at this stage by asking about what's going to happen when someone powerful or important resists the initiative, or when and if your client gets preoccupied or just lazy. For example, if you get the sense that your client doesn't want to really do this thing, they don't feel a sense of urgency about an experiment, you can get her to think about it by asking simple questions like, what would happen if you don't do this, if you don't change? Or what will happen if you do? What would the consequences be? You'll find further, more detailed instructions for coaching and for feedback in the weekly assignments, and also in the appendix of the Total Leadership book, which has a number of additional tips on being an effective coach. I'll also offer more suggestions about coaching in our discussion forums and in some of the later lectures. Now, I've talked about being a good coach. Of course, a coaching relationship is a two-way street, requiring commitment and openness on the part of both the coach and the client. So let me offer a few tips on what it means to be a good client. First, it's useful to keep in mind that your coaches are probably trying to help you. They might ask questions or give suggestions that seem critical of you and of your ideas, but their feedback doesn't mean that you're wrong, and it's best to try to take their questions, take their ideas as input for you as you think through your own approach. They're providing additional information and perspectives that you might not have thought about or been aware of. The purpose of coaching is not for you to try to convince your coaches of the soundness of your ideas. Rather, it is for them to help you discover additional insights about yourself or to improve the design and implementation of your experiments later on. Try to resist the urge to justify or explain yourself. Think about it this way. If coaching doesn't cause you to rethink or adjust in any way, or any of your ideas, well, then you've really not gained anything from it. So take it in, think about it, and then use it as you will. If you have the opportunity, ask questions of your coach, just as your coaches might be asking questions of you. You can ask them specific questions as part of your responses to the assignments. For example, in anticipation of a tricky stakeholder dialogue, which we'll learn about next week, you might ask your classmates in your assignment, if I were to position the conversation with her this way, do you think that this would build trust or reduce it? What do you think? Please comment on that. So you can make those requests in the assignment. All right, I hope you find these suggestions to be helpful to you throughout your journey in this course, and that you're able to apply the lessons you learn about giving and receiving coaching as you seek to improve performance in all the areas of your life. And as we do successive rounds of feedback and coaching, we will identify what's working well and what's not working in the giving and receiving of feedback among students. We'll talk about this in the discussion forums. I invite you to join these discussions as you progress through our course. All right, you've now completed the second week's lectures in Better Leader, Richer Life. You've learned about how your history shapes your values, what a useful leadership vision is and how to articulate yours, and the importance of taking the four-way view and how to do that. Finally, you've learned how to give and receive feedback as a coach and client in our learning community. So congratulations. Your assignment for this week is to write about a few critical events in your history. to compose your leadership vision and your 4 circles and to take the 4-way view. And you'll have your first opportunity to provide feedback to your classmates as you respond to what 3 of them wrote in their first assignment last week. This is a big leap forward we're now making, with considerably more investment this week than last. Now we're getting into the good stuff, and I hope that you find these assignments to be rewarding and enjoyable. Keep in mind, as you proceed through our course, that for your own benefit, you can always create new versions of your responses to the assignments, though you won't be able to post these within our course or get further formal feedback on them. You may find that you have new ideas about your initial responses. So if you want to update some of your answers, well then definitely do so. That's perfectly fine. In fact, it's a good thing. As I said earlier, some people have found that comparing their responses with those of others is a powerful experience, and it opens up new ways of thinking about what you wrote originally. You're making progress toward becoming more of the leader that you want to be in all the different parts of your life. And I hope that you're seeing how leadership is a mindset and a skill set that you can learn. Indeed, you can continue to learn it over the course of your whole life and just keep getting better at it, just as a musician, a performing artist, anyone who does things with their talents gets better at his craft over time. You get better at it by focusing on yourself, on what matters to you, and by helping other people. You get smarter as a leader by paying attention to other people's development. This is why peer feedback and coaching is a part of our course. Next week, we're going to explore what it means to be whole as a leader, to act with integrity by respecting your most important people. I'll show you how to identify the key stakeholders in all parts of your life and to describe and analyze your mutual performance expectations. You'll learn to see your life as a social system, a system of relationships in which you can create positive change. I hope you're enjoying the ride so far and are looking forward, as I am, to the road ahead. See you next week.